in the women's bantamweight division, Karol Rosa taking on Lina Lansberg. We have Lansberg, the Swede out of Malmo. Rosa, the Brazilian, of course. Both women looking to get back into the win column in the UFC. Lansberg dropping her last two to Sarah McMahon and Pani Kianzad. And Rosa also dropping her last fight to Sarah McMahon as well. Mark, give me your assessment and ultimately a quick pick for Rosa versus Lansberg.
All right, Karol. Is it Hosa? I can never remember.
I feel like I've heard both.
Yeah, I can't remember.
Sounds right.
Karol is the minus 330 favorite, and Lina Lansberg is plus 250. Oh, yeah, I think it's Karol Hosa.
Is it Cajol?
Wow, now we're just fucking going crazy.
I'm kidding. I'm just.
I don't think. I'm just going to say Rosa. I don't think Lina Lansberg has much for Rosa here, quite frankly. Rosa is the younger fighter by 13 years. She's more athletic. She's more technical. She's the better grappler if that comes into play. Lansberg can certainly make things ugly. She does somehow always manage to find a way to land some huge elbow at one point or another and like make you bleed. But I think it is Hosa. I think Hosa is going to get this done. Not to mention,
It makes sense.
that Lansberg likes to strike in close, and Hosa is really strong in the clinch. So, give me the woman whose name we do not know by UD.
Mark, Omar, what is your take? Give us your pick for Lansberg versus the woman whose name we do not know.
She who must not be named is the.
That's it.
This is
What
the.
I wanted to get to. My brain couldn't find it.
It's late, folks. It's late.
I think she wins, man. I think like you were saying, Lansberg has got some elbows. She has sneaky elbows. She's called Elbow Queen definitely for a reason. But I think at the end of the day, Hosa is just going to be a step ahead of her in every aspect. I expect her to win, and I expect her to win pretty handily. So I go with unanimous decision, Karol Hosa. We
are unanimous, the three of us. I'm going to go with the much younger and more active fighter in Karol Hosa. I feel bad because Lina Lansberg, she's a very pretty Scandinavian woman, and I feel like she has the name of a famous actress. Like she should be an actress with the name Lina Lansberg. Doesn't that sound like she should be like accepting an Emmy or something? And the award goes to Lina Lansberg.
She's going to be accepting an ass whooping this weekend.
There you go. All right, let's move up into the men's flyweight division, and already we have a banger, gentlemen. Muhammad Mokaev, the Punisher, the very promising undefeated fighter out of Manchester, England, taking on Malcolm Gordon. So Mokaev undefeated, like I said, 8-0, 22 years old, this guy. Won no contest as well. Undefeated in the UFC thus far. He's fought on 2 UFC London cards. Looked very impressive in both fights. Malcolm Gordon is 32 years old, out of Canada, 14-5 as a pro, 5 knockouts, 5 submissions to his name. So definitely bringing some firepower into the octagon this Saturday night. He is 2-2 in the UFC so far, but his 2 wins are his most recent 2 back-to-back victories. So, Omar, let me throw it over to you first this time. Give us your take on Mokaev versus Gordon.
So I'm looking forward to this fight because Mokaev is a very, very interesting prospect. I'm very interested to see what these lines are because in my head, I would put Mokaev at least a minus 500 in this fight. So I'm very interested to see what the line is because if it's close to that, then I need to start doing that shit for a living. Mokaev is just better, I think, overall. His wrestling is absolutely disgusting. His striking is fantastic and solid. I like Malcolm Gordon. I have no problems with Malcolm Gordon. I enjoy the way he fights. I just think Mokaev at this point in his career is just on a different level than where he's at currently. I think he definitely needs to be a step above, a couple rings above, frankly, the ladder. He just needs to prove it at this point, but I think he's there. So I'm going to go with Mokaev by a very dangerous TKO round 2.
Mark?
Muhammad Mokaev is a casual minus 1,150 favorite. Malcolm Gordon is plus 700. So, yeah, the 22-year-old up-and-coming stud here in Mokaev will try to make it 3-0 in the octagon, and I think he will. I think the pick's got to be Mokaev. Malcolm Gordon, I feel like Omar just kind of said the same thing, but Malcolm Gordon is not a bad fighter, but he's never impressed me too much, and Mokaev absolutely has. I expect him to be able to outgun Gordon everywhere this fight goes. And with Mokaev getting like a little bit nullified in his last fight, I think he aggressively looks for a finish and a statement in this one. And I'll say he gets it as well. Could be a TKO, could be a sub. The guy can do it all. I will say round 2 sub for Mokaev.
The pick's got to be Mokaev for me as well. I have loved what I've seen from him thus far, and I think he's going to keep rolling here against Malcolm Gordon. I see him finishing Malcolm Gordon. I will say in the second round, I'll say midway through the second round, I'm going to say TKO for Muhammad Mokaev.
We're all in that second round.
I like it.
Okay. Moving up to the middleweight division, Armen Petrosyan, Superman, coming back in to the octagon against A.J. Dobson. So Dobson, 30-year-old out of Powell, Ohio. He's 6'2", 6-1-1 as a pro, coming off of a loss against Jacob Malkoun back in February. Petrosyan, the 31-year-old Armenian, of course, he's also 6'2", and he is 7-2 as a pro. Great matchmaking here, and he's also coming off of a loss against Caio Borralho. So both men, similar age, similar records, similar stature, both coming off losses. Nice bit of matchmaking by the UFC right here. Omar, give us your take and your pick on this matchup between Petrosyan and Dobson.
So I don't know too much about Dobson. He's still relatively new in the UFC. But Jacob Malkoun was able to wrestle him to death. And so we know that that's a place that he could possibly be exploited. Petrosyan has heavy hands. And I would imagine that AJ Dobson, that's probably where he lives as well. I know he's gotten a couple of submissions. He definitely likes to take things down to the ground, but I would expect a lot of this fight, especially in the early rounds, to probably take place on the feet. That being said, I trust Petrosyan, I think, a little bit more just because I've seen a little bit more of him. So I'm going to go with Petrosyan by knockout first round.
Mark, take it.
So Petrosyan is favored. He's minus 210. AJ Dobson is plus 175. There is talent in AJ Dobson. I do believe you can see something in him, but he looked very wooden on the feet in his debut to me, and I just can't take a guy that looked that stiff to beat a kickboxer as skilled as Petrosyan is. And, of course, there's the wrestling angle for Dobson. He could take it there. Borralho showed how that's possible against Petrosyan. But I don't think Dobson is necessarily as big of a threat there as Borralho is. So I'm going to say that Petrosyan can keep this standing enough, and that although Dobson has power, that Petrosyan just has him outgunned striking-wise. And I think Petrosyan will use the kicks to kind of help shrink that 5-inch reach advantage that Dobson has. I think he'll navigate maybe a tricky moment or two, and that he'll just be the one landing more often on Dobson and take a UD.
So I feel that the biggest difference between these two guys is that power of Petrosyan, who of his 7 victories, 6 of them have come by knockout, whereas Dobson has three knockouts to his record of his 6 victories. So still a pretty great finish rate for Dobson, but you can see the power differential on paper as well as with the eye test. So I also am going to be taking Armen Petrosyan. I'm going to say he's going to finish him in the first round. He's going to get the knockout. Omar and I have the same pick.
Nice.
Okay, moving down now to the welterweight division. Help me say this guy's name. Abubakar Nurmagomedov.
Yep.
Taking on a guy whose name is even more difficult to say. Gadzhi Omargadzhiev.
That's
something
it.
like that.
That sounds right.
Yep. That's it.
So this is some Russia-on-Russia violence right here. So Nurmagomedov, the 32-year-old out of Dagestan, 16-3 as a pro, 1 draw, coming off of a win against Jared Gordon back in March. Of his 16 wins.
Jared Gooden, not Jared Gordon.
Oh, I misread that. Jared Gooden, that's right.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Shit, I read Jared Gordon too.
Jared Gordon is not a welterweight.
Yeah.
Of his 16 wins, 6 knockouts, 4 submissions. Omargadzhiev, 13-1 as a pro, 29 years old out of Russia, 6'1" of his 13 wins, 8 knockouts, 3 subs, coming off a loss against Caio Borralho. Mark, take this one first. Give us your take and your pick, please.
All right, Abubakar is favored, -175. Gadzhi is +140, so pretty tight. Gadzhi's coming down in weight here following his debut loss up at middleweight against Caio Borralho, and he did look a little bit small in that fight, so I'm not surprised. Abubakar is favored here, but if I'm being honest, I really haven't seen it through 2 fights. I know it's only been 2 fights. Maybe I'm jumping the gun. I'm just not terribly impressed by his game. So as crazy as it sounds, and I do like Gadzhi's game. I knew kind of some of the hype on him coming in. I think he just had a really tough opponent for his debut in Caio. So as crazy as it sounds, to suggest that a Nurmagomedov is going to get out grappled, I think that's what I'm going to do here. I think Gadzhi relies on the wrestling. I think he maybe also edges the striking and kind of just gets it done. Somewhat close fight, UD for Gadzhi.
Omar.
Very nice. Yeah, I would also have to agree. I think him coming down in weight is actually going to tighten him up a little bit. I think it'll actually give him an advantage in the power as well. I think he's a bigger guy in general. So for him coming down in weight, I think it should play to his advantage. I do think he'll be able to out-grapple in this situation, and I think his shots might have just a bit more pop at this lower weight class. So I'm going to go with Omargadzhiev by unanimous decision.
I mean, Omargadzhiev, he's just a more durable guy. He's never been knocked out. He's never been submitted as a pro. So he's coming off his very first loss against Borralho. So I'm gonna take him to get right back into the win column, and I'll say that he's going to take it in a UD.
Unanimous.
Okay, moving up to the featherweight division here. Zubaira Tukhugov, the Warrior, out of Chechnya, Russia, taking on the Brazilian Lucas Almeida. Almeida, 31 years old, 6 feet tall, 14-1 as a pro. No decisions, all finishes for Almeida. 9 knockouts, 5 subs. He's coming off back-to-back wins as a pro. Also victorious in his UFC debut against Michael Trizano back in June. Tukhugov, like I said, the Chechen, 31 years old, 5'8", so there's going to be a big height differential here. But he is 20-5 as a pro with 1 draw of his 20 victories, 12 of them decisions, 7 of them knockouts, and 1 sub to boot. He's coming off of a win against Ricardo Ramos. Or is it Ricardo Ramos? Of course. Brazil. Back in October of last year, so 1 year ago, almost to the day. Mark, give us your take and your pick, please.
All right, so Tukhugov is the favorite. He's -160. Lucas Almeida is +130. This one could be a banger. I'll lead with the pros for Almeida. He's going to have a 3-inch height advantage, a 3-inch reach advantage. He's very fast. He's a very dangerous kickboxer. He can grapple, too. He's well-rounded. He may just take Tukhugov out and make me look dumb here, but I'm going Tukhugov. I think he's very underrated in this division. Yes, he's had a couple losses, but they're split decisions to Renato Moicano and to Hakeem Dawodu, both splits. Yes, he had the 1 draw, but it's to Lerone Murphy, who's very good. He's beaten guys like Douglas Silva de Andrade, like Ricardo Ramos, who's hot right now, and that was Tukhugov's last W. There's always guys like this in MMA who are kind of unheralded until suddenly they're not, and I think Zubaira is kind of one of those guys who gets some respect on his name after Saturday. I think he can avoid the big shots from Almeida and just kind of out-technique him all fight long. Of course, it's possible Almeida is like this nice of a finisher, and if Tukhugov does get clipped, this thing could get crazy real quick because he's prone to getting crazy too, but I'm going to say he fights a smart fight, mixes it up a little with some takedowns so that he can kind of dictate it a bit and gets it done. I will say UD for Zubaira Tukhugov.
Wow. Omar.
I think Lucas Almeida is one of those guys that is not going to stop trying to look for the finish. The one thing I love about Almeida, though, is he doesn't force the finish. He doesn't overexert himself trying to finish. He's very much a patient guy when it comes to the aggression that he puts on. I think he's able to touch Tukhugov at some point, and I think he's able to measure himself enough to go for that finish. I do think Tukhugov is good enough to weather a lot of the early shit, but I think later on, Almeida is just going to be able to overwhelm him. So I'm going to go with TKO round 3.
I really like both of these guys. I'm a big Tukhugov fan. I like his energy in the octagon, but I'm going to go with the power puncher, the finisher, the Brazilian finisher, Lucas Almeida. I'm going to say Almeida gets him out of there. I'm going to say third round. TKO for Almeida. And I think it's going to be a great fight. I do.
Yeah.
His first loss was on Contender Series, and then he choked a guy out and got back into the UFC, and he beat Trezano.
Yeah, who was that Contender Series loss to? Was
Daniel Zellhuber.
Oh, to
Zellhuber.
So the opposite, a guy who had a lot of hype and fell totally flat in his debut. But yeah, I knew it was someone who fought recently.
Okay, light heavyweight, gentlemen. Going up into the light heavyweight division, and some more marquee names here with Volkan Oezdemir taking on Nikita Krylov. So Oezdemir, no time, of course. Fun nickname in the MMA world. The 33-year-old fighting out of Switzerland. He is 6'1" and 18-6 as a pro. Of his 18 victories, 12 of them have come by knockout. He's coming off of a unanimous decision victory off of against Paul Craig, which snapped a 2-fight losing streak. A little skid there. Krylov, the 30-year-old from Ukraine, he is 28-9 as a pro, 6'3". Of his 28 victories as a professional, 12 of them by knockout, 15 of them by submission, only one decision victory on his record. And he is coming off of a devastating knockout against Alexander Gustafsson back in July of this year. Omar, let me throw it over to you first this time. What is your take and your pick of Oezdemir against Krylov at light heavy?
Yeah, I really like this fight. I think this fight is actually really difficult to pick. I think both guys have tools to really put it on the other. I don't usually go with Volkan Oezdemir. I don't have a ton of confidence in him in general. And I've tend to have liked Krylov in the past, and have gotten disappointed as well. I think in this fight, I'm going to go with Oezdemir. I think he's got a little bit more experience in these situations. I think he's got a couple more fights with bigger names, and I would imagine that he takes a lot of those experiences into the cage with him and is able to dominate Krylov. I do think he will be able to touch him. I'm going to go with Oezdemir by knockout round 2.
Mark?
So I just want to note that there are still 7 more fights on this card after this fight. And if this fight was the main event of a fight night, it wouldn't even be the worst main event that we've seen on a fight night. So that's how good this card is. Okay, Krylov is favored here. He's minus 180. Volkan is plus 150 on the other end. Volkan is a good fighter, and he honestly looked interesting to me last fight. I thought he had the look of a guy who maybe found something, like there was a new confidence in him. And I know he only recently began training at All-Stars, so maybe that has something to do with it, but I kind of like the way Krylov matches up with him. Now, the trouble with Krylov is that he is always going for it, and taking chances against a guy who can hit like Volkan is always going to carry some risk. But I like Krylov. I like the well-roundedness of his game. I like his ability to finish, or at least to inflict damage from anywhere. I especially like his cardio, which could come to bear here if he's able to make the pace a bit crazy like he's prone to do. I'm going to go with him. I could see it happen fast, or I could see it I could see it happen fast if his pace and aggression kind of catches Volkan off guard. I could see it take a bit for Krylov if he needs to kind of figure out how to get a little more inside on Volkan because of the power that Volkan possesses. But one way or the other, I think Krylov does it. I'm going to say club and sub, head kick into a rear naked choke. Nikita Krylov round 2.
Yeah, I mean, No Time looked really good in back-to-back fights against Misha Serkinov and Jimmy Manuwa, and then he got his title shot against DC, and that happened, and then he got beat by yeah, and then he got beat by Anthony Smith, and then he got beat by Dominic Reyes. So he had 3 back-to-back losses. One of them was a title shot given. He came back, he knocked out Alir Latifi, and he beat Rakic by split, which is nice because Rakic is very good. Then he dropped 2 again against Prohaska and Ankalaev, which, again, 2 top guys now. And now he's beaten Paul Craig. So I along that way, I lost a lot of confidence in Volkan Oezdemir. So I'm going to say, even though he looked good against Paul Craig, I'm going to need to see one more nice win before I start picking him with confidence. And I think Krylov is he's riding with a lot of confidence because he just had an opponent in an old and rickety Alexander Gustafsson that it was easy for Krylov to look good against him. He dinged him with punches that didn't look severe and, killed Gustafsson. So I think that's going to be giving Krylov a lot of confidence coming into this weekend. So tough one to pick because I've always been kind of neutral on Krylov. I'm going to go Krylov. But because these are big boys, I'm going to say he's going to get him out of there with some big stuff. I'll say 3rd round TKO. Let's move on. It only gets better and better from here.
Yep.
Okay. In the middleweight division, I'm going to butcher his name, Makhmud.
Yep.
Muradov.
Yep.
Mach for short, or Mach, taking on Caio Borralho. Say again?
Borralho.
Borralho? Oh, really? I've been saying it wrong. The R's again, they got me. Borralho. In the middleweight division, so Muradov, the 32-year-old from Uzbekistan, he is 6'2" and 25-7 as a pro. Of his 25 victories, 17 knockouts, 3 submissions. He is coming off of a loss against Gerald Mearshart. GM3 snapped a 14-fight pro win streak and also was Muradov's first loss in the UFC. Borralho, the natural, 29-year-old out of Brazil, 6'1", 12-1 as a pro with 1 no contest, 4 knockouts, 3 subs, 5 decisions, so a very well-rounded fighter. He is on a 9-fight win streak and is undefeated in the UFC, gentlemen. Mark, give us your take and your pick.
Caio is favored here. He's minus 205. Muradov is plus 170 on the other end. I do think this is a really well-matched fight. It's an intriguing fight. Muradov kind of slipped up against GM3, but he had been on a really nice run. Borralho obviously has looked great so far in his UFC tenure. Muradov may be the better striker, but I think that Borralho is technical enough that he'll be okay. And we've seen him nullify strikers before. We just talked about a little while ago how he did that to Petrosyan. Not to mention he pressures, and if Muradov didn't do well with the pressure of GM3, I can't imagine this being any easier. And on the mat, obviously Borralho is just a much more dangerous fighter, so I could see this being competitive, but it's just more checks in the Borralho column for me, and I will say he takes a UD.
Omar, give it to us.
Yeah, I would have to agree. I think Borralho is just an overall better fighter, and I also think he's a overall well-rounded fighter. I think if he stands, I think he wins. I think if he takes it down to the ground, I think he wins. I think Muradov is probably going to look to take it to the ground at some point. I think the striking is going to be just a little bit too much for him to just want to stay there the entire time. So I do think there will be an opportunity for a submission. I'm going to go with Borralho by 2nd round submission.
Nice.
Yeah, Borralho has never been knocked out. He's never been finished at all. He's never been subbed. He only has one loss, one no contest. He's going to be the more talented fighter in there, and I think it's going to show. Makhmud is he's incredibly talented in his own right. I see Borralho taking a decision here, another one on the record, and he's going to keep marching on up the rankings of the middleweight division. All right, boys, it's getting spicy here. In the welterweight division, we have Belal, remember the name, Muhammad taking on Sean Brady. Okay, so Belal Muhammad, the 34-year-old, fighting out of Chicago, Illinois, 5'10", 21-3 as a pro, 4 knockouts, 1 sub, 16 decisions, also 1 no contest on that record. He's coming into the octagon this Saturday on a 3-fight win streak. Hasn't lost, though, since 2019. It would have been an 8-fight win streak were it not for the no contest against Leon Edwards, although he wasn't necessarily on the way to victory that night anyway. So a 3-fight win streak against Damian Maia, Stephen Thompson, and Vicente Luque coming into this weekend. Sean Brady, fighting out of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, 29 years old, 5'9", 15-0 as a pro, undefeated as a professional in mixed martial arts. Of the 15 fights, 3 of them knockout wins, 4 submissions, and 8 decisions. He's coming off of his most recent win was last November against Michael Chiesa. Omar, give us your thoughts on this marquee welterweight matchup between Belal and Sean Brady.
I love this fight. Sean Brady is very, very interesting, and I don't think there's any two ways about it. I want to see more of Sean Brady. I want to see what he has to offer, but Belal Muhammad is a big, big ask. He has shown, especially in most recent fights, I would say since Stephen Thompson fight, maybe even the Damian Maia fight, he's a real problem. That the ground game, I don't know if he always had the ground game. It just wasn't as good. We didn't see it. He didn't use it. Whatever the case is, the ground game from Belal Muhammad is some next level shit. And it's been very effective in his last few fights, and I expect it to be just as effective in this fight. His striking is solid, but it seems to be the ground game that tends to be the equalizer for him. I think Sean Brady is well-rounded, but I don't necessarily think Sean Brady is amazing in any one specific area. And I think Belal Muhammad will be able to exploit the ground game to some degree. I do think it'll be a hard-fought fight. I don't think one person is going to completely destroy the other. But I think Belal Muhammad comes out with the win. I'll say unanimous decision.
Mark, I am very interested to hear these odds.
Yeah, I mean, from here on out, we are just in huge fights. The fact that this is a prelim is just silliness. The favorite in this fight, I knew it'd be close. I thought Belal would at least be favored. He is not. The favorite is Sean Brady. He's minus one undefeated. He's minus 145. Belal is plus 115.
Wow.
This one is difficult. On the one hand, you have Belal, a guy who has now gone 8 fights unbeaten, as you said, a guy who's truly come into his own, who's peaking right now. It seems like his game is at the most effective place it has ever been. On the other side, you got a guy who's never even tasted defeat, amateur or pro. He's 15-0. He's 5-0 in the UFC, getting the biggest opportunity of his career thus far. They're basically the same size, so you can throw that out the window. They both can wrestle their asses off. So I'm having a hard time figuring out what to look to here. And the one thing I've kind of kept coming back to when I've been trying, and I've been flip-flopping on this fight, the thing I've kept coming back to is that Belal Muhammad has not stood across from a true wrestler in his entire UFC career. If you look down his resume, he truly has not. And I'm thinking about how this fight plays out, and I find myself wondering if all this improvement Belal has made to his game are things that he can't necessarily use against Sean Brady. Like, his whole game has become this game where he's able to hang well enough now on the feet with guys who don't want to be taken down, and then he's able to time so well the moment to take them down and to be able to control them down there. Sean Brady will welcome the takedown. This is a guy who just won a jiu-jitsu match with Craig Jones. Like, he is filthy. Not to mention, he may be looking to take Belal down as well. And I'm very curious to see how Belal's movement is going to be affected by that. Affected by the fact that the guy across from him is not so concerned about his takedowns and may even be looking for one. So it's possible that I'm overanalyzing how Belal's game is going to react to being across from a guy who can wrestle and who can grapple. But that's what I keep finding myself going to here. And the striking is pretty close, is it not? Like, it's not as if Belal's going to have some big advantage in the striking that he can press if need be. So I'm torn. I have flip-flopped, like I said. I'm having a harder time imagining the how for Belal. Because to me, it would have to be that he just controls Brady for the most part, like he has done to everyone else as of late. And if he can control Sean Brady like that, I would be wildly impressed. It seems like a big ask. So give me Sean Brady, close fight, 29-28 UD.
Of course, that's what Brady's going to be looking to do to him. Brady's going to be trying to control him. Okay, Omar, you go.
But I like the grappling of Brady more is my point. Once they're on the ground, I trust what Brady is doing more.
Yeah, I wasn't ready.
Oh, you did. That's right. My bad. Tough fight to pick for me, man. Tough fight to pick. Like you guys have both alluded to, these guys are pretty evenly matched, skill for skill, on paper at least. I would give the striking edge to Belal, and the grappling edge has to go to Sean Brady because he employs a wrestling heavy, a grappling heavy attack against everybody he goes up against, and so far, pretty much, including his biggest win to date against Michael Chiesa. Chiesa, his offense was pretty much nullified by Sean Brady's grappling. So hard to not go with the undefeated guy, but I'm going to go with Belal Muhammad. I'm going to say Belal Muhammad hands Sean Brady his first professional loss, his first loss overall, because that's right, he is undefeated as an amateur as well. And I'm going to say Belal's grappling is able to neutralize Sean Brady's, and Belal is going to win some stand-up exchanges, and I think it's going to be a very close fight. I'm going to say Belal by split decision. He's going to get 2 rounds on 2 of the judges' scorecards.
Like it.
All right, big fight here in the women's flyweight division. Katlyn Chookagian taking on Manon Fiorot. Let's see. Former women's flyweight championship challenger Katlyn Chookagian. They were originally scheduled to meet at the UFC Fight Night Gone versus Tuivasa. Chookagian had to pull out for undisclosed reasons. But now the fight's on. UFC 280. Here we go. So, blonde fighter, Katlyn Chookagian, the 33-year-old from New Jersey. She is 5'9" and 18-4 as a pro. Of her 18 wins, 15 of them are decisions. She is riding a 4-fight win streak coming into this Saturday night against names like Cynthia Calvillo, Viviane Araujo, Jennifer Maia, and Amanda Ribas. She has challenged, as we have alluded to, twice on this show so far. She's challenged Valentina Shevchenko twice and come up short both times. Manon Fiorot, the French prospect, 32-year-old from Nice, France. She is 5'7", and she is 9-1 as a pro. 9 of her 9 victories, 6 knockouts, and 3 decisions. So she is a stand-up fighter. No ground skills to really talk of. She is riding a 9-fight win streak as a pro coming into this weekend, and she's undefeated, 4-0 in the UFC. Mark, let's start with you this time. Give us your take. Manon Fiorot, Katlyn Chookagian, what's up?
It's funny because you guys have both said this on this episode to the point that I started thinking I was bugging, but she's only fought Shevchenko 1 time.
Really?
Oh, I thought she fought twice.
No.
Oh, you know why? It's because she fought Antonina. Is what probably is making me think that.
When Omar said it before, I was like, no, it's just 1. And then now you said it, and I was like, what the fuck? I gotta go look at this.
Fuck,
anyway,
I thought it was 2.
She is the dog here. She is plus 175. Manon Fiorot is minus 220. As you said, this is a huge, huge fight. Either girl, and especially Manon Fiorot, should be getting a title shot with a victory here. Chookagian's on a roll again since losing to Andrade. Rattled off another 4 in a row. The girl just keeps going. She stays right at that like number 2 spot in this division. She's arguably fighting better than she ever has. There is a lot less point fighting and a lot more real fighting. And then you have Manon Fiorot, who's looked incredible. She's 4-0 in the UFC. She frankly hasn't really been troubled yet to this point. And as great of a gatekeeper to the title as Chookagian has been, I think Manon's going to do it. I think she's very good at controlling range. She uses that side kick so well. And I could honestly see this playing out in a way where she is frustrating Chookagian in a way that has Chookagian kind of hitting a bunch of air again like she used to, because she gets stuck on the outside and is kind of a little too nervous to crash in and get sniped by Manon. And not to mention, I think Manon's grappling is a factor and something she could even lean on at times. And Chookagian can grapple too, don't get me wrong. But I'm just seeing slight edges for Manon kind of everywhere this fight takes place, and I'm going to roll with her by UD.
Omar.
Yeah, I would agree. I think Manon Fiorot is. I keep seeing the way that she fights, and she's so aggressive and so effective with her aggression. I just think that Katlyn likes to play the game a little bit too much and doesn't fight. She does a lot of moving around, trying not to get hit, and I understand that, but I just think Manon Fiorot is not going to give her the opportunity to play that game. I do think there have been a lot of improvements in Chookagian's game lately, especially when it comes to actually making contact with people. But I do think that Fiorot is going to be able to take advantage of a lot of the holes that Chookagian offers. So I'm going to go with Manon Fiorot by unanimous decision.
I'm very tempted to pick Katlyn Chookagian in this fight. I just thinking back on her fight, because of catching my error of the Shevchenkos. Think about her performance against Antonina Shevchenko, when she really bullied her. Katlyn Chookagian, she is not small at 125 pounds. She's 5'9", and even someone else who has some height like Antonina Shevchenko. Chookagian, I remember, she just had her way in that fight. Chookagian, she's come a long way in terms of her stand-up skills, and she can take the fight to the ground. She's going to be taller and I think bigger than Manon Fiorot. But Fiorot is a very strong fighter as well, and clearly is going to have the edge in striking prowess. Wow, tough fight to pick. I'm going to be just to be different. I'm going to say Katlyn Chookagian gets it done in 3 rounds against Manon Fiorot, mixing it up, making it a mixed martial arts fight. I have to imagine that's what her coaches are telling her, that's what has to happen across 15 minutes. And I'm going to say she gets out of there with a unanimous decision. Whew. Probably a bad pick.
Nah, dude, that's a close fight.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
These are all close fights from the time
from here on out.
Even some of the earlier ones were. Yeah, it's crazy.
All right, fun one, guys. Oof. In the lightweight division, Beneil Dariush taking on Mateusz Gamrot. Wow, what a fight. It was revealed real quick. It was revealed that Beneil was supposed to be the backup for the main event. But then it came out that Volk was going to be the backup.
Yes.
Yep.
Because
Volk offered to be the backup. The original plan from the UFC was Beneil to be the backup. But then Volk offered to be the backup, and what is UFC going to do? Tell the fucking featherweight champion, no thank you, we'll go with Beneil Dariush?
Dariush still claims that he is the backup spot.
But he's not.
Announcement has been made by the promotion. That's so funny.
No. Dana White did confirm that Volkanovski is the backup fighter.
Okay.
Beneil, as of, I just read actually something today where Beneil was like, I've made peace with it. I thought about it. If Volkanovski had, offered it, I would probably have done it too if I was Dana White. So he gets it. We all get it. It's business. Volkanovski, frankly, is just a more interesting fight too, because double champ status, et cetera, et cetera. How do you not go that route, especially if he's like, let me do it?
Yep.
So,
Nobody wants this to happen anyway. Fucking
true.
Get out of the atmosphere.
So just setting this up, Beneil Dariush, of course, the 33-year-old out of California, 21-4 as a pro with 1 draw, 21 victories, comprised of 5 knockouts, 8 subs, 8 decisions. After a 3-fight winless streak, he has been on a tear in the lightweight division, winning his last 7 fights, coming off of a nice win, unanimous decision victory over Tony Ferguson. The gamer, Gamrot, 31-year-old out of Poland, 31 years old, 21-1 with 1 no contest, 7 knockouts, 5 submissions. He's riding a 4-fight win streak coming into this weekend. Most recently, getting that nice unanimous decision victory over Armen Tsarukyan back in June of this year. Omar, let's throw it over to you first this time. Give us your pick and give us your take. Gamrot versus Dariush at lightweight.
I don't know.
I fully agree. This was my hardest fight to pick on the whole card.
Yeah, this fight is absolutely crazy to pick. This fight has a lot of different avenues it could really go down. Gamrot, as we know, is a very high pressure fighter. Seems to be a man who likes to not only push the pace but also push the energy. Right, he's a very strong man. Likes to use that strength to his benefit. But Beneil Dariush is a very technical wrestler. And has the ability, I would imagine, to nullify a lot of that movement if he gets Gamrot down to the ground. Gamrot likes to move on the ground when he's down there, but again, Dariush is heavy, very, very heavy on the ground. And so a lot of that movement might get nullified. Might not be the most exciting thing we've ever seen in those situations, but it will be very effective. I think if I had to go, point for point, I think striking, I would probably give it to Gamrot, if we're being honest. I think if we go just throwing hands in general, I think Gamrot takes it. But I think once it gets to that point, Dariush is not just going to stand there. And if it ends up going down to the ground, I do give the edge to Dariush. I think it's a very coin flip fight, if we're being very honest. I want good things for Dariush. Dariush has been through a lot of bullshit to get to this point and still not have a title shot. And I love what Gamrot has done up until this point. He has brought it in every single fight that he had. One would even argue that he won the Kutate Latse fight. But I think I'm going to go with Dariush here. I can't really explain to you why. Maybe it is because I want good things for him. But I think he can get it done. I go Dariush by probably a split decision.
Okay. Mark, lay it on us.
So I'm shocked by these odds. I thought these were going to be razor close. And Gamrot is 2-1. He's minus 200.
Wow.
Beneil is plus 160.
That's disrespectful.
Which is tempting.
Dude, I thought you were going to say like minus 100 plus 110 or some shit.
I literally thought it was going to be nearly pick 'em. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, minus 200 for Gamrot.
Wow.
And I agree with Omar. This was my hardest fight to pick on the card. I think it's just because they're both so good everywhere that it's like you try to search for what the reason is that one guy's going to win, and it's like, I don't fucking know. I just got to watch the thing. But, yeah, they're both so technically good everywhere. It's truly difficult for me to envision one guy getting the better of the other somewhere. They just both have looked so good, but I got to admit, I do kind of have this vibe where this is when it goes wrong for Dariush and that he loses this fight and that title shot just never materializes for him. Like, it kind of feels like that's the part of the story that we're at. And Gamrot is a hell of a tough opponent for him. Like, Beneil has made a living on being slick and opportunistic. Like, he finds these moments to change the fight, whether it's with a punch or with a takedown. Like, he's so dangerous and skilled in every area that if you slip up once, he's got you. But when does Gamrot really slip up? Like, he really doesn't. He fights, as much as he's scrambly, he fights such clean fights. It's so hard to hurt him or control him. I mean, the guy would be undefeated through 23 career fights if not for a split decision loss in his debut. That was a controversial split decision. So, I don't know. It feels like the smart pick is Gamrot, but it feels to me like the clever pick could be that Gamrot is like so nonstop and scrambly that he does leave that 1 second where Dariush can like crack him with something or just take the back and suddenly the fight changes because, like Omar said, of how heavy and tight Dariush's control is when he gets it. Like when Dariush gains an advantage on you, he's not getting it back, especially in the grappling. The guy is so technical. He's one step ahead. So I don't know. I make little notes to remind myself like how I want to say a guy wins if I think about it before the show, and I literally left this blank because I just wanted to see how I felt when I was picking it. I think I'm going to go the opposite of Omar and say split decision, but for Gamrot.
Interesting.
It is super tough to pick. Mark, I love your take on that. It just feels like we're in the part of the story for Beneil that this is going to snap his win streak. And that title, she's going to come so close. He's very close, but he's never going to quite get there. And I think we might look back and think of Beneil as like one of the most talented guys to not even get a title shot or something like that, if that's a category. I see Gamrot winning this fight, and I think it's going to be close in that it's going to be back and forth, and I think Beneil might have his moments, but Gamrot's just so good. I'm going to say Gamrot wins by TKO in the third round.
Wow, that'd be a big statement. Big statement.
Chapter 33. Beneil gets screwed again.
Not screwed. He just gets beat. I think Gamrot's great, man. And I mean, he's rising. I think this is his time.
It was just one of those things where I feel like Beneil could have had a title shot, a couple fights ago, probably.
He was supposed to fight Islam, man. He got hurt. He would have had the Islam fight.
Had his leg just stayed together.
Yeah.
All right. We are in the co-main event now. Here we go. Oh, wait. I think I
You missed O'Malley.
Yeah. I put these in the wrong order for a second.
Oh, I thought you said the co.
I did.
I thought you meant O'Malley.
I did, but then I was about to talk about Aljo because I put these in a slightly wrong order. Co-main event, bantamweight bout between Piotr Yan and Sugar Sean O'Malley. I'm going to be honest, guys. This might be the fight that I'm most excited about of the whole card. It really might be. I don't know. The main event. Oh, jeez. I think my palms might be sweatiest for the main event. But I'm super excited for this fight.
Gotta be.
Peter Yan, 29-year-old out of Russia. He's 5'7". He's 16-3 as a pro. 7 knockouts, just 1 submission, 8 decisions. Coming off of a split decision loss against Aljamain Sterling. Before that, he schooled Corey Sandhagen. And before that, he was beating Aljamain Sterling, but then decided to throw a very obvious illegal knee on the ground. And lost his belt. Sugar Sean O'Malley, 15-1 as a pro. 27-year-old fighting out of Helena, Montana. 15-1 as a pro. This guy's 5'11" at 135 pounds. Of his 15 wins, he has 11 knockouts, 1 submission, 3 decisions. He also has a no contest in there that just happened against Pedro Munoz for an accidental eye poke. Before the Munoz fight, he was on a 3-fight win streak against Thomas Almeida, Chris Moutinho, and Haulian Paiva. All 3 of those were devastating knockouts. And before his hiccup against Marlon Vera, where he got kicked in the nerve in his knee, he destroyed Eddie Wineland, who is a very tough 35er. So there you have it, boys. This is a incredible matchup for Sean O'Malley. Quite a step up. I think he's ranked, 13th in the UFC rankings right now? Mark, where is O'Malley in the Prio rankings?
So I believe you are thinking of the Prio rankings. He is 13th in them. He is 11th in the UFCs.
All right. Mark, let me stay with you here. Give us your assessment of this fight and your pick.
Such an interesting fight. Petrosyan is favored as he deserves to be. You would think he is minus 275. Sean O'Malley is plus 225. Man, feels like we deserve a break after that last fight before jumping into the craziness that is this matchup. Obviously, Sean O'Malley's making an enormous leap here. Petrosyan is currently the best bantamweight on the planet. That's not one of the two guys in this title fight we're going to discuss next. And on a given night, he may even be better than them. And Sean O'Malley's best career win is against Raulian Paiva. Feels wild. Maybe he was going to beat Pedro Munoz. We don't know. But right now, his best career win is Paiva, and he's fighting Petrosyan. So it's absolutely wild to try to analyze this. Throw in the fact that one guy, O'Malley, has a 4-inch height advantage and a 5-inch reach advantage, which makes this feel even more nuts to try to break down. Throw in the fact that the more unproven guy here is the one who is the knockout artist on a level that we don't see too often. And you get a lot of variables that, despite the fact that we know Petrosyan is unbelievable, you kind of sit here thinking like, man, is it possible that Sean O'Malley is going to put this man down? So if you want to talk yourself into O'Malley, you can absolutely do it. Like, if you want to believe, I do think there's reason to believe. He could be this good. He has a lot of physical advantages. He has the more power. It's possible. But, God, I just feel like Petrosyan's such a big leap. I think he's going to give Sean O'Malley problems like he's never encountered thus far in his career. He's going to be the least hittable guy that O'Malley has fought. He's going to crowd his range. He's going to switch stances to step inside. He's going to jab and double jab to step inside and make O'Malley pause and take that step back. And Sean O'Malley does not like to take steps back. Not to mention the fact that I think Jan should look to mix in a little wrestling and force O'Malley to be thinking about that too, so he can't just think he's standing there letting the hands go. And I know O'Malley is a bit longer than Sandhagen and obviously hits harder than Sandhagen does, at least with the hands. But I kind of feel like we saw Jan beat a similarly sized guy already and solve this range puzzle. Again, I know there's more of a threat from O'Malley, but I got to side with Petrosyan in the end. I think that he is just too good at playing with range. And I know O'Malley is also fantastic at playing with range, but I think Petrosyan is just going to be ready for it. And I think he can eat some shots, too, if need be at times. He's really hard to hurt. So I think it could be a wild fight for a bit. I think O'Malley could absolutely have moments. But I think over the course of it, there's going to be damage to O'Malley's legs, to O'Malley's body that adds up. And I'm actually going to say that by the time we hit the third, that O'Malley, being a guy who's not terribly durable, breaks in a fight that was very competitive to that point. So I'm going to say Petrosyan, round 3, TKO.
Excellent. Omar.
Yeah, the durability for me is what my mind keeps coming back to. Sean O'Malley is a very skinny dude for the division, and rightfully so. He's 135 pounds and he's 5'11". Not a lot that's on that body. Not a lot of muscle that's defending a lot of the bones that are there. The man looks like he trains a lot. There's a lot of wear and tear on his body. Obviously, I'm sure he does recovery and stuff, but at the end of the day, all those are little miles that he's putting on that body of his. And he's already been injured before in the past, a couple of times when it came to the legs. Once, when it came to the Marlon Vera fight, and the other when he was in the middle of the Sukumtov fight, I think, where his ankle basically just stopped working or messed up his ankle. So we've already seen him have durability issues against guys who are not necessarily ones who work people's durability on a regular basis. Petrosyan is that guy. Petrosyan is a meat grinder. The man is a problem. His hands are absolutely heavy. His kicks are probably even heavier. And Sean O'Malley doesn't do well with very heavy leg kicks. We saw him kind of take some leg kicks in his last fight when it came to Pedro Munoz. He didn't really, he had a good poker face, but I think at the end of the day, had he taken a lot more of those, it probably would have changed the trajectory of that fight. I think at any given moment, Petrosyan could land something that's really going to hurt O'Malley and change the course of that fight. O'Malley's best bet is probably keeping it at range. and using volume to do so. But it's hard for me not to think that Jan is going to take the approach that oh my God, me with the names tonight, Jesus Christ, that Rafael Assunção took this weekend, where he's going to eat one to give back one even harder than that. So I also think Peter Yan's going to win. I think it'll be by unanimous decision, but I think O'Malley will do his best to scrap. But I think this will be a learning moment for O'Malley.
We are unanimous this time, and as much as I want this for Sean O'Malley, and I do, I'm rooting for him. I want him to break through, and this would be fucking cool if like Sugar Sean knocked out Peter Yan. How fucking amazing would that be?
Oh, it would be insane, and the hype for the title fight would be insane.
Oh my God, yeah. That being said, I think this is a terrible matchup for Sean O'Malley. Sean O'Malley, I do. I mean, stylistically, it's not just that Peter Yan is excellent, but just the way that he fights. Yeah. Sean O'Malley likes to be in the open floor, on the open court, man. He's running transition offense,
literally dribbling through his legs.
Literally dribbling through his legs. Peter Yan, he's going to be pushing Sean O'Malley up against the cage, for 15 minutes, and he's going to have Sean O'Malley on his back foot. Peter Yan does not back up. Peter Yan will not let him take the center of the octagon, and he's just going to have brutal, super tight Muay Thai. He's going to be damaging O'Malley's legs. He's a great counter striker. I think O'Malley has a puncher's chance, but I think stylistically this might end up being kind of a boring 12, 13 minutes, and then he might get finished in the third. But just to keep it interesting, I'll say that Peter Yan goes home with a pretty decisive, unanimous decision victory over Sean O'Malley, and this will be a there is no Santa Claus fight. Sometimes there is, but this is going to be a there is no Santa Claus fight.
All right, so we're unanimous on that one. We got two more here. I'm very interested.
I want to point out that at some point, and I know this may have an issue doing this maybe legally or with broadcasting issues or whatever, but Beneil Dariush fight, the Peter Yan fight, the Aljamain Sterling fight, and the Charles Oliveira fight should all be fucking 5 rounds. All of them.
Oh, God, I know.
Every single one of them. The Chookagian one, we don't need to see 5 rounds of that shit. Every other one, 5 rounds.
I was literally planning to make 2 different points about Dariush and Gamrot going into the later rounds when it hit me that it was a 3-round fight, and I was like, motherfucker.
It needs to be 5 rounds.
Your brain just assumes when guys are this good that they're fighting 5 fucking rounds.
Okay.
Yeah.
We are at the co-main event. We have arrived. UFC Bantamweight Championship bout between Aljamain Sterling and T.J. Dillashaw. Former two-time Bantamweight champion, T.J. Dillashaw. This was originally targeted as the main event of UFC 279, but the promotion opted to change plans and move it to this event. Aljamain Sterling, the Funk Master. Aljo, 33-year-old out of Long Island, New York. He's 5'7", 21-3 as a pro. Of his 21 wins, 2 knockouts, 8 submissions, 10 decisions. T.J. Dillashaw. Oh, excuse me. Aljamain Sterling riding a 7-fight win streak coming into this Saturday night. Of course, the fight before his last one, he was losing, but he got to go home with a W and with the title because of a disqualification due to Peter Yan's stupid illegal knee. Either way, Aljo gets to say he has a 7-fight win streak. T.J. Dillashaw, 36-year-old out of California, 5'6", 17-4 as a pro, 8 knockouts, 3 submissions, 6 decisions. He's never been submitted. Aljamain Sterling has never been submitted. T.J. Dillashaw, famously, he popped for EPO, I think blood doping. Kind of if you don't know, somewhat similar to what Lance Armstrong was popped for. and all the cycling world kind of stuff. Excuse me. He served his suspension. What was it? A year, 2 years?
2 years, I believe.
Yeah, I think it was 2.
He came back and he defeated Corey Sandhagen in a very close fight. He took a split decision over Corey, and now he's back in the title picture because he never lost his belt at 135 pounds, if I'm not mistaken.
You are correct.
Yeah.
He did have a loss against Henry Cejudo, but that's because he went down and challenged Cejudo at 125 pounds.
Correct.
So think what you will about TJ Dillashaw. If you think he's scum, if you think he's a snake, but he was the champion, and he is a fucking electric fighter, and I will always love to watch him throw hands and feet. Mark, give us your take and your pick of this great bantamweight bout.
Okay, Aljamain Sterling is favored. He's minus 175. TJ is plus 145. Maybe a little wider than I thought. That's another one I thought was going to be pick'em-esque. Yeah. Man, when you walk through these fights like we are, it gives you a little bit of a sense of what it's going to feel like to watch them one after the other, and it's wild.
Yeah.
I love this fight. I love the way that so many people seem to be writing off Aljo as if he's not a worthy champion and a fantastic fighter in this division. I mean, outside of getting caught clean by Marlon Moraes, which happens, this guy has only lost 2 other fights, and they're both by split decision, and arguable split decisions at that. Like, he is incredible. He's been marching through this division for the past 5 years or so. He just 100% beat Petr Yan. I'm not here for these people who still want to argue that Petr Yan won that fight. He did not. Aljo won that fight, and Aljo is the champion. At the same time, as you said, though I'm glad he got stripped because I'm not here for the cheating, no one ever took that belt off TJ either. So this is really the matchup to settle this 135-pound division with some finality here as to who the top dog is, until suddenly Henry Cejudo will then throw his name in the hat and we still won't know who the top dog is. But, yeah, it's a big one. As for the fight, Aljo's going to work his same game. The long kicks, the long strikes. He'll try to grab onto you, trip you, drag you down, eventually hit you with that Aljo backpack. TJ's obviously going to mix it up, at least striking-wise. He's been saying he's going to look to wrestle. I don't know if I actually believe that, but he will surely look to exploit what will be a distinct advantage in speed, in striking skill, in danger and power in the strikes. That's where I think TJ should live in this fight. But Aljo's a big dude. He's going to have a 4-inch reach advantage to lean on, which will help him keep that distance until he wants to close it. And as much as Aljo's not like a great striker, he is a smart striker. He does well to keep the distance, to kind of throw those lunging strikes that he does at times. He uses the kick to keep people off him, uses that long jab that he has. So he does well to control the range. And obviously, if TJ tries to break that range, then he's got to worry about getting clinched up by Aljo. So I do think Aljo is going to be okay on the feet. It's possible that TJ just looks unreal and reminds us all how good he is. It's possible. But I think Aljo's going to be okay. I think he can rely on those type of strikes like I just mentioned, keep TJ a little bit honest, a stinging jab here and there, a teep. And there are going to be times where they are close. And the way TJ fights, I kind of said the same thing about Poirier in the past and was right when he fought Oliveira. TJ is one of these guys who can be too comfortable. He can give his back when he shouldn't. He can look to stand too quick. He's just more comfortable in the grappling department than he should be at times, and I just think these are dangerous habits to have against Aljamain Sterling. So I know it's a bit of a bold pick. I know TJ's never been subbed. I'm going to say Aljo finds it. I think Aljo really announces himself to the world on Saturday and finds the neck. I will say Aljamain Sterling, round 3, rear naked choke.
Nice. Wow, round 3. Okay, Omar with the eyebrows. What's up, buddy?
I think the craziest shit is my pick is also submission round 2 by
Aljo?
rear naked choke. Yes.
Wow.
Rear naked choke specifically. I don't know why. In my head, I do think that Aljamain Sterling has an edge on the ground. I think the one thing about TJ Dillashaw is that he's never really, to me, seemed like somebody who lays and prays and keeps control the way that Aljamain Sterling does. TJ Dillashaw is very much a guy who would take advantage of somebody who is not, who's on the ground, who doesn't have a base, so he could strike, he could throw things, he can land damage, but he's not going to like ride you in that specific sense. The other thing that has been evident about TJ Dillashaw is that when his striking is not working, which does happen, his reaction then is to rely on his grappling. Sterling is not going to allow that. I think Sterling's acumen when it comes to the grappling is going to cancel out a lot of the nullifying things that TJ Dillashaw does in moments where he's not comfortable striking. I think we saw a lot of that in the Corey Sandhagen fight when Corey was working long and when Corey was using his distance. TJ Dillashaw was able to close the distance and basically ride his back, throw knees to the thigh, and kind of burn the clock in that situation. That I don't think is going to happen in this case. I do think that if Aljamain Sterling does get him to the ground, I think his backpacking skills are a lot better than TJ's are. I think that body triangle from the back is an absolute savage problem. And I think his hand movements when it comes to him looking for rear naked chokes is second to none. I wouldn't even be surprised if he's able to find something like a calf slicer or even one of those banana splits as well. He's very, very creative on the ground. It's definitely Sterling's bread and butter. So, yes, I go Sterling, round 2, submission. I think it happens early.
I think it happens early. Wow, round 2. You think he gets that backpack? That's what this fight is riding on, is obviously is if Aljo can get the takedown and secure that position and go to work. I could see an Aljo decision, taking home that decision victory with a lot of ground time, a lot of control time. I'm going to go with the striking skills of TJ. I think I see TJ continuing to wear the black hat and play the villain and do it well and getting boos. But that doesn't change the fact that he is coming into this fight with, I think, a considerable differential in his favor in striking prowess. Under Duane Ludwig, he's just an incredible kickboxer. And I see him getting a unanimous decision victory on Saturday night. 5 rounds of that stuff. That is tough.
Yeah.
Might be a bad pick. We got our difference.
Yeah, right.
Now, let's see if we have one on the last one.
TJ will always annoy me, though, because Dana White talks about how he took his suspension on the chin and took it like a man and all that stuff. I still feel like he mocks everybody about it.
I agree.
And it drives me absolutely fucking wild. His company name being Clean Juice, I think, is one of the biggest slap in the faces to the whole situation in general. But
that is true. I keep forgetting that. Also, that's a silly thing, man. I heard Aljo say this in an interview. And I think he's 100% right. To say that he took his suspension like a man, it's like, but he cheated. Like, he knowingly cheated and got caught. He didn't fess up to it himself.
It's sort of like giving credit for somebody who did something fucked up. Like, yeah, I did it. Well, good for you, bud. I'm glad you confessed. Glad you let us know the truth. It's still a cheater, man. It still happened. And who knows how long that was going on. If that was just the only time he got cheated, it brings so many questions into his legacy that just ruin it.
Omar, did you lose Mike's video as well?
No.
No. That's weird. I did.
I still have my video.
I hear
All right,
you,
boys.
but I don't see you.
It is main event time. UFC 280. Charles Dobranks Oliveira against Islam Makhachev. Here we go for the now vacant UFC lightweight championship. It is vacant, remember, because Oliveira was stripped of the title at UFC 274 when he failed to make weight by like 0.1 ounce or something like that. Something stupid.
Yeah, some garbage.
So here we go. Charles Oliveira, 33 years old, fighting out of Sao Paulo, Brazil. He's 5'10" and has 33 victories and 8 defeats, 1 no contest. Of his 33 victories, 9 knockouts, 21 submissions, and only 3 decisions. My man is a finisher. He's been knocked out 4 times. He has been submitted 3 times. He has been on an 11-fight win streak coming into this weekend. 10 of those are finishes. He has fought a who's who, and he has finished a who's who. His last 5 fights, Kevin Lee, guillotine. Tony Ferguson, decision, but he absolutely murked Tony and almost broke his arm. I think he did break his arm. Michael Chandler, TKO. Dustin Poirier, submission. Justin Gaethje, rear naked choke. I mean, he's just murdering everybody. Enter Islam Makhachev. 31-year-old out of Dagestan. He's 5'10". He's 22 victories and only 1 professional loss, which was a knockout. Of his 22 wins, 4 knockouts, 10 submissions, and 8 decisions. He himself, gentlemen, is on a 10-fight win streak coming into this Saturday night. His last 4 victories that I'm going to highlight are Drew Dober, Thiago Moises, Dan Hooker, and Bobby Green. Omar, give us your thoughts, and then give us your pick.
This fight is absolutely wild. The memes for this fight have been fucking A1. I've seen all different kinds, from Charles POV with him right in your face, ready to knee you to oblivion, to Islam in a bathtub with all the Dagestani boys. It has been wild. As far as the matchup specifically is concerned, it's very intriguing. And I say that because Oliveira at one time was specifically that submission guy, right? That guy that if you got down to the ground with him, chances are you ain't getting back up, and he's going to walk away with one of your limbs or your neck or something. But Oliveira has really found in his game how to implement his striking in a really effective and efficient way. And I think, like we were talking about last time, he takes advantage of a lot of kicks, a lot of knees, a lot of movements that for somebody who, on a regular basis does not want to get taken down to the ground, generally won't do as much. But Oliveira doesn't mind. And he utilizes that to take advantage of those moments and those against his opponent. Makhachev, though, is a very skilled striker. He's a very skilled grappler. We've seen him overpower guys inside of the octagon the way that Khabib used to. His team is very, very high on Makhachev. They talk very highly of him, almost like a better Khabib. I like Makhachev. I can't really speak negatively about any of his performances that he's had recently. He's looked extremely dominant, extremely dangerous, a very big problem in the division. But I just think Oliveira has just figured it out. He's found himself. I don't think he needs to worry too much about the guy on the other end of the octagon. I think his game has gotten to the point where he's so comfortable that I think he can adapt on the fly, and we've seen him do that. I trust Oliveira a little bit more. I don't subscribe to the whole Oliveira has tapped before, so how could he have a good ground game? That Khabib mentality shit just doesn't work for me. It doesn't allow for growth. It doesn't allow for guys to make mistakes. It doesn't allow for guys to learn from those mistakes. And I think Oliveira has done that with all of his losses. And I think we've finally gotten a version of Oliveira that is the best. And I truly believe that he's going to walk out of that octagon victorious. And I think he does it in quite devastating fashion. And I think he gives Makhachev his first submission loss. I go with Makhachev, rear naked choke, round 4.
Oliveira, rear naked choke, round 4.
The fuck did I say? Did I say Makhachev?
You said Makhachev, bud.
But you meant Oliveira, I could tell.
I meant Oliveira, round 4, rear naked choke.
All right. Love it. Let's go. Odds. The champion is the dog. He is plus 150.
Wow.
Islam is minus 180.
Why?
This is one of the biggest fights in a long time, it feels like, if we're being honest. It's almost making me feel as though we're getting Charles versus Khabib, which you guys know was always my dream fight back when Khabib was champ. I think it feels like that because of the way they've built it, like the talking between the teams, Khabib talking, them all kind of dismissing Charles. Like, it almost feels like, in a way, Charles is getting that shot at Khabib, at least the shot to, like, shut him up. So I'm into it. I like that storyline. Of course, on the other end, Islam is getting his shot to almost continue the legacy in a way. Same division, same belt and everything. So to the fight, the main point I keep hearing is that, oh, Charles keeps doing this thing where if he gets clipped at all, he goes down. No one wants to follow him down. But in this fight, if Islam drops him, he's going to follow him down. He's not going to be afraid to follow him down. They're like, oh, these other guys have been. And my counter to that is Islam is knocking Charles down. Like, Islam is not Dustin Poirier or Justin Gaethje or Michael Chandler. I'm not sure if him knocking down Charles Oliveira is going to be so easy to do. So, yeah, can he take him down? Of course he can. He takes everyone down. Will he be playing a dangerous game? Of course he will. That's what makes it so intriguing. That's why I've always wanted to see Charles and Khabib. We get Charles and Islam instead. If Islam ever could just take Charles down and control him, it would be one of the biggest statements we've seen in MMA in a long time, I think. But the jump from a 1 week notice Dan Hooker and a 2 week notice Bobby Green to Charles friggin' Oliveira is light years. Not to mention,
I was going to say, not just really quick, full camp, eyes corrected, Oliveira. Continue.
2020 Oliveira.
2020 Oliveira.
Not to mention, I think there's a lot of pressure on Islam. It's in Abu Dhabi. The crowd is going to be behind him. They've had a lot of hype for him over there. His team has already been anointing him as unbeatable. It's a lot. And to be honest, the guy's never really even fought on that big of a stage before. If you look back through his record, like, he's never really been on a stage even remotely like this. Whereas Charles thrives in that now. He loves this. So, frankly, I don't think this is happening for Islam. In fact, I wouldn't even be shocked if this never hits the mat. And obviously I'm a Charles guy. You guys know this, but I think Charles starts so friggin' hot. He walks you down so violently that I think this one may be over before Islam can even drag it down there. I know Islam's one of the least hit fighters in the UFC. So maybe this is bold. I think he gets hit like once per minute, some crazy number like that. Obviously, that's factored into because a lot of times he's on top of guys in the wrestling, so that kind of gets skewed. But I think Charles Oliveira is going to knife this guy to bits on the feet. I think he walks out. I think he lands clean on Islam early. A little bit later, he lands clean again. Islam starts to think, what the hell's happening right now? I'm hurt. I'm never really hurt. He shoots a shot that maybe Charles kind of half scrambles out of. They reset. Charles hurts him again, and things just go south for Islam. I think Charles' power is very, very real. You know, Chandler and Gaethje are not guys who get put out easily. Gaethje described Charles' power as something he'd never felt before. Yes. And Islam's going to feel it. I will say it is either a TKO or a guillotine that comes after like a desperate last attempt shot from Islam when he's already hurt. But I'm going Charles Oliveira round one finish. And for the sake of the pick, I will say TKO.
Wow.
Holy shit.
God, what a pick. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. You're talking about Islam Makhachev like he's like an unranked like lightweight.
Dude, did Charles not do this to Justin Gaethje last fight? Same
and
thing
Poirier,
I just described.
And Chandler.
What I want to see is whose face looks like what by the beginning of round two. I want to see whose demeanor changes first, because this is one of those fights where the first round I think is really going to dictate what the rest of that fight is probably going to end up looking like. And when we begin round two, I want to see who's a little bit more worried than the next.
Yeah, I mean, think about it. Charles is very used to and very comfortable with things not going his way.
Yeah.
He's just like, yeah, fine. I'm going to adjust.
He's also not. He's also very comfortable being the bad guy too. I don't think he gives a shit that people are going to be cheering against him and counting him out and all this other stuff. I think he's way past that at this point because it's not the first time.
Agree. And if things start not to go Islam's way, I'm
We don't
curious how he responds. Curious.
Agreed. One
don't
would
know,
think
'cause-
that he gets fucked up in that gym, right? I mean, AKA is full of a bunch of animals.
Yeah.
So it's very possible that he's tasted, getting overpowered or getting mauled, especially with Khabib is there as well. But one would imagine, I was talking with Mike about this earlier, that, I always try to train against people who are better than me because I want to reach that level. I want to climb to that level, painfully so. But I would imagine for somebody like Islam, where is the top? Because if he's wrecking everybody left and right, at what point are you getting better, or are you stalling yourself out?
All right, Mike, give it to us.
I have a different take than you guys. I think Oliveira has the check. He has his boxes checked in so many huge ways. He has the check in experience, confidence. To your point, Mark, I think you're right. I think he clearly is his preference is to come out of the gates super hot. He's going to come out of the gates. He's going to basically do like a running jump kick, and let it be sloppy, let it be crazy, let it be a scramble. Makhachev's the opposite, of course, which is partly what makes this matchup so fascinating. Makhachev is a machine. He is an android. He's a cold-blooded robot in there, who is a better striking version of Khabib, who's also a little bit bigger. So I see the fight playing out this way. I think Oliveira charges at him, comes out of the gate like a screaming eagle. Makhachev does duck down just out of what do you say, habit, I guess. Takes down Oliveira. There's scrambles. I don't think that Makhachev lets him up that easily. But yeah, I still have to take Oliveira just because of his experience and his confidence. And the fact that, yeah, kind of similar to Sean O'Malley, that obviously they're very different characters, that, Islam Makhachev's toughest competition to date is a short notice Dan Hooker. So just on that alone, and the fact that Charles Oliveira has mopped the floor with the elite of lightweight, the Gaethjes, the Poiriers, the Michael Chandlers, the Tony Fergusons, like a real who's who. Obviously, Makhachev is here because we think that he is this good, that he could beat, Charles Oliveira. But I'm going to go with Oliveira. I'm just going to be the biggest fucking wet blanket. I'm going to say Oliveira by decision after 5 rounds.
It goes all 5. Jeez.
I don't know, man. I don't know, because he hasn't.
I think the later the fight goes, the more I'm concerned for Oliveira, to be honest.
Yeah, I guess so. All right, that's my bad pick then.
No, hey, they could
I'm sticking with it.
Dude, have confidence in the picks, man. I think it was Dan Hardy I heard say this line, and I was like, man, if that is not the most perfect description of this fight. He said that Oliveira has 100 ways he can win this fight, and Islam has maybe 2 or 3, and the likelihood of the 100 versus the 2 or 3 is about the same.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. Love that. Love Dan Hardy.
Yeah.
We did it, boys.
Oh, man, we did it.
We did.